Okay, guys, good afternoon. Hello. Hope y'all are doing well. We're basically going to get started here in just a minute for the first of our 2 review sessions. And hope y'all had a good weekends. Just getting my little backup stream here on the phone. Hi, Austin. How's it going? Maybe. All right, just another minute. Hi, Jonah. Welcome back. Hey, Tatsuma. Hello. And hey, Mateo. Okay. All right, guys. So we're pretty much now at 12:45. So as usual, I'm just letting us get started right on time. Welcome back, and I hope you had a good weekend. I hope your other classes are going well as we get close to the end of the semester. Let me just start by mentioning just a couple of points. First of all, you guys know that you have your 4th homework assignment due tomorrow night, anytime before midnight. So just make sure that you do send it to me. And whenever you do, I'll grade it, and I'll be finishing those this weekend. When I'm done with the grading, by the end of the weekend or early Monday morning, I'm going to send another notification off to the class, and that will be your extra credit opportunity. It's going to be very simple. I'm just going to say to you, please request your grade, and whenever you do, then I'll add 10 points to your total for the class. So everyone's going to get a chance to add 1% of the course value if they just do a grade check. And then based on that, it'll be very good for all of us because everyone will head into the final knowing exactly where they stand. If there were any missing assignments or other outstanding issues, then that'll get clarified. So that'll be our plan. Anyway, don't forget you have your 4th homework. That's the critical analysis of news media. You're going to try and turn that into me before midnight tomorrow anytime, and then it'll be on time. And then, of course, the last thing that we have is our final exam next Thursday. So we're going to have 2 class periods here where we get prepared for that final exam, today and Tuesday. And to everybody here, Noah, Alina, Anthony, Mateo, everybody, good to see you. So here's what I would like to ask you guys to do, or can I ask a quick question? Who has noticed the announcement that I sent just a few days ago with the study guide? Can someone confirm that first of all, and then we'll go from there? Got the study guide basically? Did you? Hey, Con. Okay, good, thanks. Thank you guys. All right, so that means everyone's got it. If you haven't yet checked your announcements or your inbox for this class, go ahead and take a look, and you'll see that I mailed the study guide the other day. So anyway, that study guide just contains all the listed topics that we want to be aware of for preparing on the final. Now, looking at the study guide, here's what I say. Pull it up right now if you can. So go ahead and gain access to your own copy, whether you have a printed copy or if you just have the electronic file. Pull it up in a separate window on your browser or with whatever technology you have. And we're going to use this list to guide us through the review session today and on Tuesday. Now, we have 2 halves of the study guide. The first half of it is all the stuff that happened before the midterm, and that's the part of the study guide that we've actually reviewed earlier in the class when we were getting ready for the midterm. And then the second half of the material is all listed after that, chapter 5 and then on. So this is our time then to go over this topics and all these topics and this information one more time before we get into the final. So I guess here's one way that we could run this, and let me know what you think. I was thinking maybe today we could focus on some of the information from the first half of the class, just to brush up on that again and revive your memory. And then maybe on Tuesday we'll really hone in on the second half of the material since it's a little more recent. If that sounds good to you, then that would be, I think, a fair way to proceed here. So unless there's others that have a strongly different opinion, you want to talk about the second half first. But what do you say? Let's go back into the beginning and take it from the top. If so, just let me hear your assent to this proposal. Okay, sounds good to you? Thanks. Just wanted to kind of get us all on the same page. All right, then. So here, let's go. I'm looking at the study guide, and I hope you are too. And we're going to just take it from top to bottom as much as we can. We might not get through all the information or topics in this one meeting, but we'll just do our best, and then we'll proceed from there on next Tuesday. And with review sessions, I think I said this when we had the midterm one, but in general, my preference is for it to be more student-led and student-driven. So that means that I like it when students kind of try their best to provide the needed information, because after all, you're the one that has to perform well on the test, so you kind of have to practice giving the information. Nonetheless, if I think I have to insert myself to clarify anything, to correct anything, or to drive us back to the right track, if we're getting off track, then I'll do that and make sure that everything is here clear and accurate. Yes, Prue, it's a cumulative exam, because life is cumulative. Do you remember what you were doing when you were 12? I hope you do, because you can't forget these things. So you're supposed to accumulate knowledge throughout your life. Yes, it's cumulative in this case, but I will emphasize more of the information on the second half of the study guide. That doesn't mean that I'm going to just ignore the first half of the semester, because I want you to remember it to your dying last day. But at the same time, yeah, I'm going to focus on more of the stuff in the second half, and that's fair to say. So in line with what I've said that we're starting at the beginning, yes, it's cumulative. So let's start at the top. First question, somebody tell me, what is a good critical thinker or a bad critical thinker? Now here's the thing, guys, speed counts, it helps, because the faster we go, the more information we can get through. So as soon as you feel like you know something, type it in this here chat. That will also create a permanent record for us, because the chat, as you know, you can watch the live chat on the replay. So you have a written statement to go with the questions. So who can think of what is a good or maybe a bad critical thinker? But just let's start with a good one. Okay, well, hope you're feeling well, Ian, but congratulations. You've joined, you're one of us. Thank you. Open-minded skepticism. Mateo, what are you saying? Are you trying to define the concept of a good critical thinker? It's sort of that, but let's say the full definition. It's a type of person. What type of person is a good critical thinker? You know, I think if you say open-minded skeptic, maybe you have a sense of the idea, but there's a precise way we've put it. Thanks, Paul. But yeah, question. Good critical thinker, do you know what that is? It's the whole course is based around trying to be this type of person. So what is the goal we're trying to get to? What type of person is a good critical thinker? So you got to go back in your notes, your memories, or some combination of them, and just retrieve these pieces of information for me. On day one, this is where we started. We talked about it. What is a good critical thinker? Good, no, thank you. It's a person that would not believe a claim unless it was based on good evidence or good arguments, right? There's also the second part of it, though. And Devin, you're getting to that, which is good. The other part is when you're the one presenting the claim. So you might sometimes be hearing information from people. Sometimes you're the one putting it out there. So when you're receiving info, you wouldn't believe it unless it could somehow be supported or backed up by good evidence or arguments, right? So that's one half. And then the other part of it is that if you're a good critical thinker, when you make claims to other people, you can back yourselves up with reasonable evidence and arguments too. Okay, so good critical thinkers don't believe things that don't have good evidence behind them. And when they make claims, they give good evidence to support it. Now, what's a bad critical thinker? It's just the reverse. So we would define that just contrary to the other definition. So a bad critical thinker is therefore what? It is a person that will believe claims that are not based on any kind of good evidence or argument. Okay, so a person that believes things for just no good reason at all, right? And also with a bad critical thinker, when they're the one presenting information, giving some claim to others, they don't try, or at least don't have the ability sometimes, to provide good evidence or arguments to back themselves up. Yeah, so someone that will believe anything, whether it's well-based or not, and also they don't have the ability to support their own claims with rational defense, evidence, arguments, and stuff like that. Okay, so we want to be the better critical thinkers rather than the worst, and that's the whole big picture of the class. Okay, so next question, what's an argument in the formal sense defined in logic? Not like, parents fighting. I know people talk colloquially about these as arguments. But instead of talking about the raised voice, nasty tone, insults, etc., an argument logically is a good thing. And what is it? It's a set of things, but it's a set of what things, how many of them, and all that. Tell me, what is an argument? Very good, Devin. Okay, it is a set of two or more sentences where one of the sentences is the conclusion and all the remaining other sentences are premises. Every argument requires at least one premise and exactly one conclusion. That's true. Okay, good. So when you have an argument displayed, what you'll see is that there's a claim that you're trying to prove, and then you have premises above that claim that's supposed to support it. Every argument is a set of two or more sentences because there's no such thing as a single sentence that is an argument. If I say to you the Lakers are the best team, maybe I believe that, but it's not an argument by itself because I would have to give reasons why that is true. I would have to say, well, you know, whatever reasons I might give. They've got LeBron James, he's a monster, therefore they're the best team. But it would not be an argument to just give one sentence, even if you thought it was true, even if it is true, because it has to be based on some kind of rational premises or evidence to be an argument at all. All right? Now, we just sort of mentioned these things in the last response, but let's take a second to be even more specific. What are the different parts of an argument? If you can give me the definition of the different parts, the different types of sentences that fill the positions in an argument, what are they called, and what's the definition of these parts of an argument, if we could say? Now, any of you guys can jump in. Seems like, Devin, you're very well prepared, which is good. But to all of you guys here, let's get active. Tell me, if you could try, what are the parts of an argument? And by the way, if you're looking at the list, you can also anticipate what I'm going to ask next instead of just kind of passively waiting for me to raise the topic. You could have the list in front of you and be scanning it a little bit visually, thinking, okay, here's what he will ask next. So you don't have to like think of the info for the first time when I ask the question. Okay, good, Noah. Oh, well, no, it's not good. You're just giving a comment. Not worth it. Devin types faster than me, and we're on the same page of notes. Yeah, well, who knows if he wants to take on all the extra labor, though, Noah? It's not necessarily equitable, is it, to just say someone else is doing it, therefore I don't have to? I think we call that diffusion of responsibility, don't you? So, Devin, conclusion: a statement that is attempting to be proved true. Right, that's the claim that you're trying to prove to be true. The statement itself, I guess, doesn't, make itself true, but right, the statement that you're trying to prove to be true. And then the evidence are called the premises. So premises are just the evidence or the reasons that give support for the conclusion. There you go. Good. So let me continue. Good banter. Thank you, guys. What's the definition of the word truth? Okay, so we make arguments. Why? To try and make a case that some claim is true, to try and show or demonstrate that the conclusion is true. But what is it mean for a sentence to be true? What does that mean? A sentence is true when what the sentence says matches the facts of reality. Thank you, Mateo and Devin. That's right. Now here, can you tell me just something true? Write down something true. Something that's true, which is clear. No, I'm Paul, going to go to TGI. Is that the true thing, that you guys ought to do that? That's kind of, whether you ought to or not is maybe, I think, a little too subjective to be claimed as a real objective truth. Okay, Devin, we do have a final next Thursday. That's a fact, yes. Again, I mean, I suppose there are some possible contingencies that could happen. Like, what if a massive meteor shower just destroys the whole West Coast and then there's no such thing as school or whatever? But yeah, it is scheduled for next Thursday, and I guess we can say that's true right now. Jonah, your example is a little weird because it's like a necessary truth. Dogs are dogs, obviously so, but usually it's better to state a contingent truth as your example, because that's something that we can refer to that might not have been the case. But anyone else with just a straightforward example? I mean, I don't want to be picky, but these are both a little strange, and I think we could say something more regular, more just basic, like look around. There's an infinite number of true things. Dogs are mammals. Okay, true, Devin. Yes, that is true. It's a classification type of truth, though. So it's like about the phylogenetic category of a whole species. So it's not like a particular fact. It's like a conceptual thing. Therefore, I would still ask, can anybody tell me something true which might not have happened? Because there's an open can to your left. Hard to verify for me, though, Mateo. Or are you talking about that can in my case? Anyways, Jonah, you did type that message. All right, fair enough. Unless there's an imposter taking your place, then I just take your word for it. Again, though, you guys give examples that no one could verify. How about, like, I don't know, the Eiffel Tower is in France, or, you know, something that's just a fact that's verifiable to all. But okay, you guys, sometimes I think when I teach truth, I find it to be interesting because for some reason it's not the most ready at hand concept. But I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm a philosopher. I look around and I'm like, there's a million evident facts. Anyway, okay, let's go next thing. The Earth is surrounded by an ice wall. Okay, come on, Noah. You're just going to throw people off. But that's fine. So let's go to the next thing. That's not true. Okay, so that's the opposite of the example you should give. What's the definition of the word belief? Yeah, belief. So to believe something, instead of just whether it's true or not, what does it mean to believe it? Okay, very good. Yes, Paul. It's when someone thinks that a sentence is true. Okay, and so for better or worse, we don't always have the same agreed to beliefs, right? I may believe that the killer of JFK was Lee Harvey Oswald, and you may say, I don't believe that. I think it was a cover-up, right? So in that case, we just don't agree on whether this is a fact. But anyways, like there's a lot of different cases I could mention. You know, people may disagree about whether someone cheated. You know, like someone says, I thought they cheated, but they denied it. Do you think they're telling the truth? Someone says, yeah, I believe it's true that they did not. The other person says, I don't believe that same statement. Okay. Cool. So let's continue then for the next case of what are some conclusion indicator words? Here are some words that if you ever hear them or read them, what they indicate is that next comes the conclusion of an argument. So, all right, great, Noah, that's fair. So words like therefore, so, in conclusion, thus, hence, consequently, ergo, QED, it follows that. These are all examples that you can use. Yeah, so I'm your professor, therefore I attended college. The Earth orbits the sun, thus the Earth is not in the center of the universe. I don't know, you could say the shell casings were found at the crime scene. They were connected to the weapon owned by the defendant, and therefore he's guilty. You know, you might say this is your conclusion derived from the available evidence. Some of these things are evidence based in like a contingent circumstance, and others are kind of just more big picture things, but those are all examples of, you know, conclusion indicator words being inserted into an argument right before you give the conclusion. Okay. So yeah, good. Therefore, there was a single shooter with a magic bullet. Yeah, there you know, I guess you've read into some of those things as a Bruder film and all of that. Well, let's keep going. What are some premise indicator words? Here are words which signify that you're hearing some evidence in an argument. So what are some like evidence words instead of this is the conclusion part? So, okay, thanks, Noah, that's great. So because, given that, well, given that is actually without the comma in between, but I guess you could have given as a shorthand for given that, but that by itself wouldn't be one of them. But anyway, yeah, so because, given that, since, due to the fact that, on account of, inasmuch as, some of these are like a little more obscure, but those are all premise indicator words. Provided that would be another fair one, right, Paul? So provided that, you know, his DNA is all over the crime scene, and given that he had a confessed motive before to his friend, it follows that he is the murderer, blah, blah, blah. Examples like this. So you notice that before I said what the reasons are that I think he's the murderer, I'm giving these premise words like because of and since this other thing and, you know, due to the fact of blah, blah, blah. Thus, I have this conclusion that I'm giving. Okay, so we go to an imperative sentence. What are, so what is the type of sentence that is an imperative? Say, if you can, an imperative. And maybe just give the definition. Okay, yeah, it is a sentence that contains a command. That's right, Noah. So, I don't know. Could you write one down? There you go. I thought that was funny on your what was it, midterm or something earlier when I asked you that question. You gave it. That was a very clever response. The question says, write an example of an imperative sentence, and you fired back, no, you write an example of an imperative sentence, which is itself a command. Yeah. Teach you. Okay, fair. I'll try my best, but you have to learn. Yeah, so commands. There's all kinds. Get on the ground. Put away your books. Don't do that. Don't touch the stove. Move. Get down. Just there's all kinds of examples, right? So we could go on and on, but you understand that the term in grammar is that that's an imperative. Okay, go. Drink that arsenic water. Prefer not to. It'd be a strange command to give somebody, yeah. But who was it that died of? No, that was cyanide poisoning. I'm thinking of Alan Turing. I teach about him sometimes. You know, the guy that created a computer that also was a big code breaker for the Allies in World War II. Okay, but anyway, let's get back to the questions. Next, I have this. What is an interrogative sentence? Someone will tell me this. Oh, the LaCroix. Haha. Funny. Okay, now I get it. It is the chemical LaCroix. I didn't know this. It's a question, yeah. If you had said, is it a question? Then that would have been a funny way of answering. But yeah, also very good very meta there, Matteo. You're asking about what is an interrogative, which I guess is an interrogative. You'd be really lost if someone was like, well, you just did it. And they're like, huh, still don't understand. But yeah. Paul, you say, which can cause kidney toxicity and tumors, which is used to treat cancer. Okay, so, I mean, I don't know. You really want me to read what's in the can? It just says this. Carbonated water with essences. That's it. Carbonated water. I mean, it's just carbonated water, and I guess the flavor comes from the essence. You guys have done a lot of research, I guess, into the topic, but not me. Sorry. Cool. Well, you know, I can't just take your word for it, though. I appreciate these claims, but now I'll have to investigate on my own, and if I can verify that, then maybe I'll take a look at it. But, you know, I felt like it probably would have been promoted in the media a little bit more if that was the case. Who knows? Yeah, so back to the question, though, right? An interrogative sentence is any type of question, any sentence that ends with a question mark. So that's an easy enough one to remember. What day is it? Where are we going? Are you authorized to be in here? Stuff like that. These are just interrogatives. Think interrogate. That's part of the root of the word. Okay. Who's Joe? Is that your example of like a question? Okay. Biden. Funny. To the next. What is an astrotoric sentence? These are important, I guess, for the sake of logic and argument. We need to use these types of sentences because they're the only type that could be premises or conclusions. So what is an astrotoric sentence? Declarative sentence, another word sometimes used for these. But anyway, I mentioned it as an astrotoric sentence. Yes, it's a declarative sentence, Matteo, but that's a little bit of an elliptical definition. Maybe we can say something more about what exactly an astrotoric or declarative sentence is. We're getting really into the fundamentals of the definition. It's a sentence that is, you know, I don't want to give you too much, but it's either something or something else. What? Yes, there you go, Con. It is a sentence that is either true or false. So sometimes in logic and philosophy we say any sentence with a truth value. Like a sentence that has a truth value is something that can be evaluated or determined, or at least in theory, could be true or false. If I say Santa Claus exists, I'm making an assertion. It's not true, but I'm claiming it is. If I ask who is Santa Claus, that's not an assertion of fact. It's just asking for information. Or if I tell you, you know, kill Santa Claus, like I'm giving an imperative, that's also not evaluable as true or false because it directs your actions instead of claims that something is the case. So anyway, here's some examples. Biden cannot hang. Biden is trying to ban menthol. Okay, so these are not examples, but yeah, I don't know, Noah, about that whole argument. I've heard that there are some like racial disparities in the number of people who are harmed by the use of menthols. But in terms of, yeah, banning them, I don't know. Didn't they already ban like flavored vape and stuff before the Biden administration? So I feel like there's kind of just a general social reckoning with these types of, you know, devices and products. But yeah, an astrotoric sentence. Go ahead, write down one of them. Was that your example there, Paul? The Boolean parameter is false? Maybe it's a little bit too obscure of an example, but you can still buy flavor vapes. Okay, well, didn't know that. But let me get any astrotoric sentence, making sure that it's on the record in the chat. This is an important chat with a live chat, you know, because it's going to be referred to by all our students as a source. Yeah, I mean, why are we going off on this tangent about menthols? I mean, it's not even relevant. You know, you guys would understand that there's such a thing as relevant information and irrelevant information. In the course of a review session, I don't have any strong opinions on menthols, but you guys raised the issue, so I was just trying to say what I've heard reported in the media. Would yellow as the best color be an assertion? Yes, it would. It would be a strange assertion, I guess, because it's definitely a subjective claim, but just because it asserts that something is a fact, even if you thought that there's no objective fact about it, it would still be in the realm of, you know, an assertoric sentence. I guess someone could say, no, it's not the best color, and in that case would say your statement is false. Let's see. Well, that's the thing. It's not a perfect example, Paul, but I'm just working with what I'm given by the student in the comment. And in a technical sense, since it's not a question, since it's not a command, and since it's not an exclamation, it's something that appears in the grammatical form of an assertoric sentence. But philosophically, we might say that there's no truth to this question or to this statement. There are aliens on Mars. That's a good one, I think, Devin. Yeah, to say there's aliens on Mars, I guess, false, but who knows? Maybe they'll discover some type of little tiny paramecium or something. But it's whether it's true or false, it's still an assertion that has the potential of being exactly one or the other. Okay, so I'm moving on. Here we have a key question. The key question to ask right now is this: what is a deductively valid argument? And I'm mentioning it as a key question because it's so important to our whole class that I'll just tell you it will appear on the final. Some version of this will appear on the final. So, okay, thanks, Paul. It's an argument where if all the premises are true, then the conclusion must also be true. Correct. Now, just a few points of analysis here to make sure we don't say something wrong if we were asked this, or when you were asked this question. See, Noah, you made the error that I was just going to refer to. You don't have the word if. Notice how there's a difference between your phrasing of it and the ones above in Devin and Paul's case. It's key that you have the word if, because otherwise what you said is not the right definition. You say it's an argument where the premises are true, then the conclusion must also be true. No, because you can have valid arguments that are not sound. And if you have valid arguments that are not sound, then by definition, some of the premises are not, in fact, true. Like all men can fly, and Donald Trump is a man, so therefore he could fly, would be valid, but it's not sound because it's obviously false, this first premise that every man can fly. It's clearly just absurd. So the concept is this: if the premises are true, like if pretend they were true, then in that case, the conclusion would have had to be true as well. Well, Noah, not to be picky about your way of responding, but I just want to say that because it is a common error. And since that error shows up sometimes, I'm trying to just make a point that say if then. If then is part of the definition of deductive validity. If the premises are true, the conclusion has to be as well. Okay, next, let's talk about what is a sound argument. What does it mean when the argument is sound? And in a sense, I just kind of touched on this, but now you can be even more specific. Very good, Paul. It's a deductively valid argument with all true premises. Welcome, Lauren. Good to see you. Just going through our study guide, and we're midway through the Chapter 8 stuff. Right now, we're talking about soundness. So anyway, yeah, it is, Mateo, that's one part of it, right, that all the premises are true, but don't forget to also include the other bit, that it's valid in the first place, and all the premises are true. Okay? So now we're going to have some questions about an example. Number 13 says, give an example of an argument which is valid, but it isn't sound. So here, let me try and ask you to present me one of those cases. Since it's hard to write in standard form, I guess, Paul, you're already thinking of what I was going to mention, which is to somehow signify what the premises and the conclusion are in your little typed out answer. So here's what you wrote. All mammals are born from a womb. A dog is a mammal, and therefore dogs are born from a womb. Okay, I like your example. It is valid, but it's not sound. The reason that it's not sound, though, is for a sort of obscure reason, and I think it might confuse some of our students, even though, Paul, we've talked about this, and you understand clearly that there are just a couple of mammals that don't give live birth. They're the platypus, and I can't even remember the other case. There's like another like sort of species that's somewhat similar to the platypus. So any case, what the case that you mentioned, which says all mammals are born from a womb, I mean, many people would say that is sound, because isn't that true? Like, we are born from a womb. And it's like 99.99999% of mammals are. You just have this obscure case of the platypus. But whatever. To be fair, yes, this is a correct example. All mammals are born from a womb. Not true, but let's suppose a dog is a mammal. Okay, well, putting those two statements together, it does logically follow that dogs are born from a womb. Yeah, let's get another one, because I don't want us to only have one very odd or weird example to refer back to. Let's see, just try another case too, and anyone's able to jump in. Give me your own thought or example of a deductively valid argument, but it's not sound. So, you just have to make sure that the logic of the argument works out, but there's something false in the claims where the premises are. Okay, Mateo, COVID-19 vaccines are contagious. Contagious of what? But okay. Socially distancing prevents infections, therefore socially distancing will prevent catching the virus. I'm not sure if I understand your information here, because first of all, you say the vaccines are contagious. Well, how can one, I just don't even know how to parse the statement. Meaning that when you get that, other people then are also vaccinated because you were? And then you say the distancing prevents the infections. Oh, will prevent catching the vaccine. I read it wrong. I thought it said virus. Okay, so like you're saying, here's your example. I'm following you now. You're talking about the vaccine like it was a disease or something. Okay, so if it's a contagious like illness, and when you distance, you don't get infected from things, distancing will stop you from getting the vaccine, catching the vaccine. It's just a strange, odd example, but I guess I can follow your logic though. Yes, I can now understand it. Yeah, the thing is this though, like, wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, you're saying, Paul, we could all just kind of catch the vaccine instead of having to wait for people to do it on their own volition. Yeah, no, I got you, Mateo. That's good. Now, here's the thing, though. Just because I want it to be easy for people to generate such examples without having to think through all these complexities, a simple kind of format for like a valid argument generator is just to have a statement in there which has a prefix like all or none. If you say like no dogs can fly, and or like all dogs can fly, and like Lassie is a dog, therefore Lassie can fly, that would clearly be valid just based on format. But the first premise is an all statement, which is false. So you can sometimes start with like a false all or no statement. Like if you say no men have climbed Mount Everest, and Bill Clinton is a man, and therefore he has not climbed Mount Everest, that would also be valid, but it's just not sound, because there have been men that have climbed Mount Everest. Okay. All right. Just to make a point about streamlining some of these examples, because if you have to get too creative, it's almost making it more complicated than it needs to be. Okay, so we can go on to the next thing. I just like an example of a sound argument now. Okay, so we just need an argument that does have the correct form, but in fact the premises are true. So they're going to be a little more normal sounding, I guess. They're not going to say like all dogs can fly or whatever. So let's see what you think. No, you can be creative during the study prep and on the exam. Here's the thing. You have to think there's an individual level of thought, and then there's kind of like an awareness of groups. And in my view, I have a responsibility, I think, to all members. Those that get it really easily, they can spin off creative examples. Others find it a little more tricky. It's from experience, I know that people find some of these concepts difficult. Therefore, if I can make it easier for anybody, I'd like to. Okay, so next, Paul. All mammals breastfeed their young, which we've talked about and is true. Okay, so that's like a necessary condition for the mammal phylogenetic category. So all mammals breastfeed young. Duckbill platypus is a mammal, and therefore duckbill platypus feeds the young. There you go, good. That's a fair example. Con, Canada is in North America. Montreal is in Canada, and so therefore Montreal is in North America, and that's also a fair example. That's a good one too when you talk about like geographic containment. So if I'm standing in California and California is contained within whatever the planet Earth, then I'm planet Earth, and that would be valid as well and sound. Okay, so and like as I said before, a valid argument generator can rely on the form of like all or no statements. And if you want to make sure that you give a sound example, just make sure that the all or no statement is true. Like if I say no woman's been president, whatever, Elizabeth Warren's a woman, so therefore she has not been president, that would be valid and sound. or if I said all presidents have been men. I mean, I'm just going off the example that came to the top of my head, but you follow the rest of the logic through, you'd have a valid and sound example. Okay, so let's continue then. Yeah, they say that no person of color has ever walked on the moon, and that's like some type of priority of the like 2020s to make that happen. So I was just thinking of that as I gave the example. But back to the list. Okay, what would it mean for an argument to be inductively strong? Let's just focus on that. So definition of inductively strong. Yeah, that's true. Correct, Paul. You don't want to use categorical terms like all or none in the statement of an inductive argument because it eliminates room for possible exceptions, which induction always allows for, the possibility at least. Correct. But yeah, let me hear from you. What is first the definition of an inductively strong argument? And then maybe we can give an example too. So there's deduction. That's one type of way of reasoning, using deduction, deducing things. Then there's induction. So tell me, what does it mean when we have a good inductive argument? They don't call them valid, they call them strong. What does it mean? Okay, so Paul, an argument where if all the premises were true, then the conclusion is highly likely to be true. You say may not have a false conclusion with true premises. No, that's wrong at the end though. It may, in fact, have a false conclusion with true premises. It's just not likely. Does that not? I'm not sure, because I think you already knew this answer, but maybe you've not correctly recorded the answer here. Jonah, if all the premises are true, then the conclusion is highly likely to be true. Yes. Wait, sorry, Paul, what are you saying here? An argument where if all the premises were true, then the conclusion is highly likely to be true. That's it. I mean, that's it. That's where you should have stopped. What is the remainder? May not have a false conclusion with true premises. Don't you see that that contradicts what you wrote above? Because it just says likely. Likely doesn't mean given or necessary. So if it's likely for the conclusion to be true when the premises are, then in that case, it is a possibility, theoretically, to have a false conclusion with true premises. Like here's an example. The moon has come up every night for billions of years, so therefore it will come up tonight. That would be an inductively strong argument. But it doesn't guarantee the moon will come up tonight. The whole point is, like, if an asteroid blows it up in the afternoon today, then sorry, but there won't be any moon that's orbiting tonight, and that will stop today, cold. We don't think that'll happen, though, because in a billion years plus, it hasn't happened yet. But who knows? It's not a guarantee. So you shouldn't say that, you know, may not have a false conclusion with true premises. It may have a false conclusion with true premises. Maybe the word not is what you should have omitted. But anyways, yes. Well, you just have to correct your notes there, Paul, because you had an error. So I'm just telling you the definition is simply stated. If all the premises are true, then the conclusion is highly likely. Now, someone give me an example that doesn't have to do with the sun or moon, because I just kind of gave that situation. Let's hear an inductively strong argument then. Well, yeah, it's just a little conceptual error, but it's easy to correct. Inductively weak means that it's not so likely that the premises will lead to that true conclusion. Inductively strong is that it is likely. So if I say I found $1 yesterday, but therefore I'll find one today on the ground or whatever, that's not a very strong conclusion to base off of that one premise. But you give me this example. The monotremes are all threatened or endangered. A mammal selected at random is probably not hatched from an egg. Oh, wait, sorry, I started at the bottom. Thank you, I'll go above. So monotremes, it's the type of category within which these platypus fall. So monotremes are the only group of currently living mammals that are hatched from eggs. Yes. There's only 2 member families of them. Also yes. And so there you say the monotremes are all threatened or endangered. Okay. So your conclusion based on all that is that a mammal selected at random is probably not hatched from an egg. Yeah. So what you're saying is, if I just find a mammal out there in the field, this is probably not a mammal that came from an egg because there's just such a small number of them. It's a kind of convoluted and complex example. Again, I somewhat prefer during a review for the examples to be the most accessible. Devin, you give a pretty, almost on the opposite extreme, very simple. Yeah, so I've woken up every time I've gone to sleep. Now here's the only thing I would add maybe to your case, Devin. It would be good if you specified the precise like duration of time, because I understand, you know, that you're whatever, 18, 19, 20, some maybe a little older, but in that range. but like it's not to be presumed based on the argument itself who the identity of the author is. So it could have been written by a 2-year-old or something. And if that's the case, there's not that much time they've lived. So maybe they'll succumb to some type of child, viral infection or whatever. But yeah, if you say, okay, I've been waking up for like 18 years every morning, and therefore I'll wake up tomorrow, it sounds pretty strong, at least to me. Paul, you then say, so should have been may not have a likely false conclusion with true premises versus may have a likely false conclusion with true premises. It's an odd, awkward parsing or wording, but that's not, yes, that's correct. So when you have an inductively strong argument, it means that if the premises are true, it is not likely that the conclusion is false. But the word not kind of, I would rather express it in the affirmative. It is highly likely that the conclusion is true if the premises are. On the other hand, when it is a weak inductive argument, we have premises that seem to establish a conclusion, but it's not a very likely basis to establish that conclusion. So weak, you have a likely false conclusion with true premises. Strong, it's not likely that there's a false conclusion with true premises. Okay. Yeah, no, but I think you have a correct understanding. It's just how you're wording it. Maybe that's a little weird, but it's fair enough. That's a good thing to say. Devin, if the premises are true and the conclusion is not probable, that's inductively weak. You say, I found a $20 bill on the ground yesterday, and therefore you'll find a $20 bill on the ground tomorrow. Yeah. There's been a couple of cases in my life where I couldn't believe it, but I found maybe someone dropped like $80 and it's just in a parking lot somewhere. No way I could have known who did it, so I just collected that. But it's like something that happened maybe like once. I'll always remember it, but it's happened maybe once or twice. I found like a $10 bill running at the track one time, but it's just rare, okay? Anyway, experience the blizzard once in your lifetime, and then you say it'll probably snow tomorrow. That would be inductively weak, I would guess. Although, where will it snow? Are you talking about your present location? Because that's what would be linked with the premises. That it will snow somewhere in the world is actually quite likely, but I guess that's to be implied. Okay, so we'll go on. Let's ask, what is a disjunctive syllogism? So, okay, there are different forms of deductively valid argument. There are different forms of deductively valid argument, and we learned 4 of them. There's actually a wide variety of more, but these are some of the big basic ones. What is a disjunctive syllogism? Okay, Devin. So, well, you're giving an example. That's fair. Okay, let me look at it. I was thinking we might talk about the form at first, then we could proceed to the example, but here's your example. Either Joe Biden or Donald Trump will win the election. Donald Trump did not win, and therefore Joe Biden won. Yes, and Mateo, you're giving the format. So let me write that format on the board one time just to make it clear visually. Okay, it's an argument by elimination, and that's true also, Paul. So disjunctive syllogism. We have this type of logical form. We start with a disjunction, which is an either-or statement. So either A or B for some A and B. And then after this, we negate or eliminate, as they say, one of the disjuncts. So suppose we deny A, not A. Then what remains is the other alternative disjunct, and so therefore B. So that's like the form of disjunctive syllogism, and Devin's example is just one possibility. You gave the case of an election, like the presidential election, and you say, well, there's 2 candidates, running, and so it's either the one or the other. Trump